Well, guys, what do you think? So, I guess we're just going to do kind of a group discussion here, and I'm going to start it off with an experience of mine that had a huge impact on who and what Tom is today. Little bit about me. I was born on November 2nd, 1961. That's All Souls Day, if any of you guys are familiar with that. So you have All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, All Souls Day, you know, the Day of the Dead. And when at my birth, at 10:40 in the morning, I took my first breath. I was head and shoulders. I was out head and shoulders, and my mom's completely stopped having contractions. And so I sat there for 5 minutes with just my head and shoulders out. The doctors and nurses were gambling on whether or not I was going to be a boy or a girl. And 5 minutes later, out I came. And I'm not sure if the doctors or the nurses won. I didn't hear that part of the story from my mom, but anyways, I decided what clothes I was going to wear in this world, right? So I'm wearing the clothes of a man. Also, November in 1961, there was a shampoo that came out by a company called Johnson & Johnson called Head and Shoulders. I just found this quite synchronous. So, interesting childhood, moved around a lot. When I was 5 years old, I was living in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. Somebody had gone into the bathroom and taken a roll of toilet paper and strung the whole roll of toilet paper out all over the bathroom. And there were 3 kids in the family at the time, and my mom was furious, absolutely furious. So she lined all 3 of us kids up in front of her and said, "All right, damn it, whoever did this had better fess up. I'm going to spank all 3 of you." Well, I knew that I didn't do it. I knew my brother and I knew my sister didn't do it. We were all outside playing. And I couldn't understand why she would want to spank all of us for something none of us did. So I said, "I did it, Mom." I took the spanking. And she sent me to my room. So as soon as I hit my bed, tears streaming down my face, you know, 5-year-old kid. As soon as I hit the bed, I was looking down at my body. And I distinctly remember my hands felt like balloons. It was bizarre. I didn't have to breathe. I was looking at my body, and I thought, this is cool as shit. So I flew through the skies of Phoenix. I went right through the roof of the house, and I flew through the skies of Phoenix, and it was awesome. I flew by, somebody was flying a kite, you know, the old diamond-shaped kites. I flew right up next to the kite, and it was just awesome. And as I was flying, and then I knew I had to fly back to my body. I had to go back to my body. As I was flying back, this is a Saturday afternoon. There are people on the streets, you know, and as I flew back to my body, everybody I saw was completely covered with warts. What I called warts. At 5 years old, I termed it warts. Looking back at that image now, it was like leprosy or a completely diseased body. They were terrifying for a 5-year-old. Scared the crap out of me. So, back into my body. I led a fairly average life in the 3rd dimension. You know, I did the experiments with the drugs when I was a teenager and joined the Air Force, did my 4 years in the Air Force, and got out of the Air Force, moved to Southern California. And that's when things started getting a little bizarre for me. The synchronicities started in. I'm sure everybody here knows what a synchronicity is and how they are simply bizarre. Here I am coming from the complete third dimensional mind, no kind of religion or spirituality in my life at all. And things started happening. I started getting, when I'd go to bed at night, I would hear things in my head and in my ears that weren't out there. And I started really questioning my own sanity. Like, what the hell's going on? And things would pop into my consciousness, the issues that I knew of that had to be dealt with in some form or fashion, but I didn't want to face, started popping into my consciousness during these times where I was quiet and this noise was happening. Best way I can describe it is a vibration. It wasn't actual sound, but I could hear it, if that makes any sense. So this stuff started intensifying, and I ended up getting myself in trouble with the law, and I got arrested and was sentenced to go to jail for 5 months. Now, I got arrested, sentenced to jail, and then they sent me home for like 4 months, and then I had to report to jail 4 months later, however that worked. In that 4-month time, I moved from San Bernardino to Palm Springs, and this stuff was really starting to intensify. The synchronicities, in this period, I had been given a deck of tarot cards, and I was finding that there was some really interesting, bizarre things that were happening around those. It was just, the synchronicities and the bizarre nature of reality was really starting to change for me. I was just like, whoa, what the hell's going on here? But I still hadn't really asked that question. I really had to, in earnest, ask what the hell is going on. And I pushed this stuff away, pushed it off, kept it at arm's length because I really didn't want to look at it. Well, during this 4-month period between being sentenced and actually going to jail, living in Palm Springs, I was a carpenter, and I was a carpenter for like 20 years until I did the job right, until I switched to what I'm doing now. But I was on the other side of Palm Springs building a house, and I noticed on the other side of town there was a big black cloud of smoke coming off somebody's house over there. And I mentioned to the guys on the side, I said, man, somebody's going to have a sucky day when they get home. Their house is burning. A couple hours later, my wife shows up to the job site with tears streaming down her face. It was my house. And so I took off from the job site, went to the house, and immediately the tears started coming down my face, and I walked around in the burned out husk. Well, it wasn't even a husk, it was completely gone. I walked around in the rubble, and I ended up right smack dab in the middle of what used to be the house, and I got on my knees. I looked up at the sky and I said, what in the hell is going on here? Because there was absolutely no reason for it. I mean, nothing. There was all the strange things and the crap that had been happening, the getting arrested, everything did not make sense, did not make third dimensional sense. It didn't add up. So I had no religion, no spirituality of any kind at this point. And I'd been looking at the tarot and a few other things like the Book of the Dead and you know, different metaphysical things, just very lightly at this point. But this really made me ask that serious question inside my heart, and I needed to find out. So I went to what a billion people on this planet go to, the Bible. I picked up the Bible and I read it from page 1 all the way through. And while I was reading that book, I was having the world around me was reflecting things straight out of that Bible, straight out of that book in the life around me. Like when I was reading Daniel, there's a passage in Daniel that talks about the dry bones in the valley. And one day, the day I read that passage, I was driving from San Bernardino down into the Coachella Valley. And there was a cloud formation that was a perfect human rib cage, like this, right in front of me. And it was like, okay, dry bones in the valley. I couldn't deny this. I was really praying for God, and I was getting messages from from God. It's the only way I could term it. God was talking to me because I was seriously throwing myself into that book. And I began getting I asked the question, why is this happening to me? You hate me. What the hell? No, you are my beloved son. I love you. These are the messages I was getting back. And I started looking at all the different metaphors in life around me. And everything started reinforcing that I was the beloved son. And my mind took hold. The monkey mind took hold. And I went down a path that quite a few people go down in this world, but never talk about it. I've never heard anybody really talk about it. It's called the Messiah complex. I started truly believing that I was the incarnated return of Jesus Christ on this planet. Now, yeah, I did the same thing. I had a lot of people do that same thing.
I had like this image of like a pharaoh in front of me, and I felt like I was that reincarnation.
See, this is something that a lot of people go through. They have that self-aggrandizement happens. There's an essence, there's a spirit there that supports that self-aggrandizement consciousness when it begins to build within a person when they start really seeking. Well, I just happened to pick Jesus Christ, and it was self-supporting. Every question I asked about, are you kidding? Is it really me? Yes, you are my son. I love you. You are my beloved son. That was the message I continued to receive. And not only psychically and through my being, it was reflected in the world around me and the synchronicities that were happening in the world. And I couldn't deny it. Absolutely could not deny it. So this is, I started reading, I completely read the Bible one time all the way through. And I started reading specific passages the second time through. And I was bouncing around in the book a bit, and I was really confused. And I really didn't understand what the hell was going on. I was about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks before I was supposed to report to jail. And I got on my knees by my bed, tears streaming down my face because I was confused and didn't understand what was going on. Praying to God, help me, show me what's going on, show me why this is happening, show me, help me. I laid down in bed and fell asleep. Now, I told you about the dream. I called it a dream at 5 years old when I flew through the skies of Phoenix. From that day to this day, I didn't recall a single dream in my life. My nights were completely dark. I fell asleep. I cried myself to sleep, and I had a dream. And I was in my house, and I was looking down out of the curtains. I was holding down the top of the curtains looking outside, and it was dark out. I could see other buildings out there with lights on. So I knew other people were out there. And then I saw a friend of mine from second grade. His name was Mike Deacon. Came walking up the sidewalk to my house. And I all right, my friend's here. So I jumped down, went outside to greet him. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Come on in my house. So we turned around and walked up to the door. I reached out and grabbed the doorknob. It was locked. I said, oh, don't worry, Mike. We'll go around back and we'll come through the back door. So we went around to the back of the house, and sure enough, the back door was locked. Oh, don't worry, Mike. I'll go through the second story window and let you in. So I had a scene cut away. You know how dreams are. The scene just phases into the new scene. And I was in the kitchen, and big vaulted ceiling in the kitchen. I was floating near the ceiling. And I was looking down at Mike standing just inside the door, and he looks around, and then he finally notices me up there, and he sees me, and absolute terror fills his face. Absolute terror. And he starts running, and I'm totally puzzled. I could not understand why he'd be afraid of me. So I started chasing him through my house. I chased him and chased him and chased him, and I finally got him cornered in a room. And he was backed into a corner, and he had a statue of Mother Mary in his hands, and he was holding it out towards me like you hold a crucifix towards a vampire, you know, trying to ward me off with the statue of Mary. And he said, I swore I'd never speak of this again, You're the devil. And I reached out and put my hands around his hands in the statue, and I said, no, I love. And I woke up. Now, 24 years of absolutely no dreams, and having something of this, like, holy crap. You know, it took me a long time to piece any of that together and make any sense out of it. Immediately, I was just a fledgling Christ, okay? So I just barely come into this consciousness where I was believing that I was the incarnation of Jesus. And I immediately addressed it as well. Organized religion, Mike Deacon, you know, the deacon of a church, Mike Deacon is going to point at me as being the devil when they don't understand who I am. You know, so anyways, I go to jail, and the next 3 weeks supported that. Before I went to jail, the next 3 weeks completely supported the Messiah complex for me. It reinforced it, built it up in me, and the day I went to jail, I was fully embodied Christ. I was the Jesus Christ. I didn't return on a cloud. I returned with a clouded mind. This is the message I got. It wasn't, you know, that it's one of the prophecies that he will return on a cloud. But I did. It was a clouded mind. So I'm in jail, and they assigned me to work in the laundry at a sewing machine. So the metaphor there, I'm sowing my seeds, right? So I am fully embodied with that consciousness, and I'm talking to all these guys in jail. This is San Bernardino County Jail, probably the toughest and roughest jail in the United States of America. And I'm really getting through to these people because I am putting this energy out with such force. I mean, I was Jesus Christ. And I was doing my Father's work. I was sharing that message. And I know I did a lot of things for people that I talked to while I was there. I'd been there 2 weeks, and I'd been walking with these two guys on this track. There's a track outside where everybody goes to exercise. And I'd been walking around this track with these two guys talking about God with them. And the bell rang to go back inside. And I told these two guys, I said, the last thing I told them, I said, always remember that God loves you. As soon as I said that, a heart-shaped mylar balloon dropped out of the sky 10 feet in front of these guys. I mean, I was like, holy crap, you know. And these guys, their jaws dropped open and shit, you know, it's just like, wow, okay, here's your sign, right? So this is all reinforcing this consciousness that I have, this Messiah complex that's going on. So I began getting these messages that, okay, my son, it's time for you to leave. It's time to go. You've done your work here. And the next day after the balloon dropped, the next day I'm sitting in the laundry that morning, and I was just absolutely barraged with the messages to leave. Get up and leave. Today is the day you need to leave this jail. And I was like, okay, well, you know, what do you mean, leave the jail? Finally, I said, okay, I'm putting my faith in your hands, and I am going to do exactly what you're telling me to do. So I was sitting at my sewing machine. I stood up, and I walked out the door, and there's a desk with a guard sitting right at the door in the laundry. The guy didn't look up, did not look up, didn't glance at me, anything. I walked out of the door of the laundry. And at this time of the day, there's nobody outside at all at the jail. I walked out of the laundry, and immediately the gears start working. The monkey mind starts going, whoa, I'm walking out of jail. You know, so I start walking towards the main gate, and I walk past this admin building. And this lady comes walking out of the admin building, and she has a patch on one eye. And she walks out and walks directly, right past me. I mean, we were a foot apart, and never once glanced at me. And I got the message. See, they cannot see you. They are blind to you. You are invisible to them. So that reinforced me a little bit, so I continued walking towards the main gate. The gates in a jail, with the entry gates to a jail, there's two gates, right? They never have both gates open at the same time. It's a security thing, right? As I was walking up to the inside gate, there was a van that was coming on the property, and they opened up the outside gate and immediately opened up the inside gate. Both gates were open at the same time. I didn't stutter step, I didn't speed up, I didn't slow down, nothing. I just I continued my steady pace and walked right through both gates. As I got through the second gate, my mind really started going. Okay, well, holy shit, I'm walking out of jail, you know, what the hell? Immediately, and there's like 30 people standing outside the gate to come in and visit people. You know, and immediately this guard comes running out of the guard shack. Freeze, get on the ground, blah, blah, blah. So I gave no resistance. I got down, he cuffed me and took me in and put me in this room, and comes in a couple minutes later to fill out his report. You know, asked me, what the hell, you know, and he said, what the hell, you crazy? And so I'm not going to tell the guy, okay, I'm Jesus Christ, you know, God told me to walk out of jail. It could be in a rubber room, right? So I told him, oh, I miss my wife, I got a new kid, you know, I'm homesick, I just had to get out of here. So he fills out his report, and they put me in the hole, which is a little 4-foot by 8-foot cell with a concrete slab and a stainless steel toilet. I'm in this hole for a couple of days, and the sergeant of the jail comes in, one of the big dog guards there comes in to talk to me. He asked me, what the hell, what possessed you to walk out of jail? And again, I'm not going to tell him that I thought I was Jesus Christ, so I told him that story. So I denied what was really going on a second time there. And so they put me back in the hole, and a couple days later, the San Bernardino County psychologist comes in to talk to me, because these guys, they obviously think I'm a nut. The guy just walked right out the front gate. You know, he's obviously got a screw loose. So the psychologist talks to me, and again, I'm not going to tell her that I think I'm Jesus, right? So they put me into what's called the ISO block, which is 8 cells that are back to back with solid walls in between them, but open bars on the face of the cells. And I've been they just barely put me in ISO block. And 10 minutes after the guard left, there was a guy a couple cells down that crowed, went, So I denied 3 times before the rooster crowed. Now, everybody's familiar with that story out of the Bible, right? Peter denying Jesus after he was crucified 3 times before the rooster crowed. Well, that really hit me. I was like, holy crap. I mean, these are events of biblical proportions going on here, you know? Well, what the hell? And I can't deny it. There's no way I can deny that this stuff is really happening. And so I was put in maximum security, had a little red wristband as an escape risk. And the books started coming to me. I got a book. The first book that came to me was called On Religion, which was a very objective look at the world's religions. I had books from Edgar Cayce. I read all the Carlos Castaneda stuff. I mean, just anything that I actually think it was a designed order of books that came my way to bring about my consciousness, to bring about my understanding. And I also decided that it was time for me to go from page 1 in the Bible again and read it all the way through, because there was something that was tickling me that just wasn't right. These guys told me that I was going to walk out of jail, that it was time for me to leave, and I put my faith and trust in them. And here I am in maximum security for another 5 months now. I'm in here for 10 months now instead of just 5 months. So I had some real serious questions to ask of these guys. What the hell is going on? As I was reading the Bible through the second time, there was a passage in John that said, no man can reach the Father but through the Son. And when I read that, I had the picture of a door pop into my mind. And I didn't understand what the door was all about at first, but then I thought about okay, what do you do with a door? You walk through a door. And no man can reach the Father but through the Son. So I said, well, what happens there? What happens there when you walk through something? Or in that, if I take walking through a door and overlay it onto that passage, what happens there? So I went through the Son to reach the Father. And I overlaid that metaphor with Christianity. I went through that Messiah complex, through that Christianity to reach the truth, to understand what was really happening in this world. Now I'm going to cut a huge amount of different things that happened through that whole experience, and just tell you actually what I gained out of this whole process. I understand now how each and every one of us, as an individuated consciousness on this planet, are each the center of our own universe. And the universe around each and every one of us reflects to the magnitude of our faith the world around us. The stronger and more sincere and more you believe and more you know what's going to happen and how the world is going to treat you in your life, the more it's reflected that way in the world around you. That is a fundamental law of our existence. That's what I've learned anyway. Fundamental law. We're in a reflective world. Questions? Comments?
Well, there's only really one person having a conversation in this room, so.
I have a quick
No, I mean,
Sure.
we're all one.
Oh, I see.
I meant we're all one, that's what I meant, like not, you know what I mean? Reflection, we are one.
We are, yeah. We're all reflections of each other
Yeah.
on that sense.
Yeah.
It's complex.
Smart.
Can you just repeat that last final thing you just said, that we are reflections of the world around us, or
It's both. All is true. We are, each of us as an individuated consciousness. We all have our own consciousness and our own being. And each of us reflects the world. The world is reflected around each of our own centers of universe. To the magnitude of our faith, to the magnitude of our knowing. The more you know something or believe something's going to happen around you, the more it's going to be reflected in the world around you. Each of us are mirrors for each other. We're all mirrors for each other. We reflect. We're like little shards of mirrors walking around. You had a comment?
I was taken by your comment about the statement in John going through the door.
Mm-hmm.
No one shall reach the Father except through
the Son.
The Son, S-O-N, is our life as a human being, is yourself, Son. The Son is, you start out as a baby and you go to maturity, you evolve. And, being a spark of the God itself, we can only return to God by experiencing human life. And the door is human life. And the Sun, S-U-N, is where our conscious energy comes from. It's beating down on the earth and into each one of us. And so in that aspect too, through the Son, we then ascend back to the Father.
A lot of different levels. There's a lot of different levels to that statement.
Sure.
And it's a living statement. Now, when I say it's a living statement, it depends on the perspective and what you need out of that at the time, as far as what it means to you. Now, for me at that time, it was a huge step for me to be able to take and break that crazy shit that was going on in my head. It was a huge step for me to be able to break through that, to have that picture projected into my mind.
I like that.
Yeah.
The portal.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you said something about as the SON, reaching the Father through this life. I think we reach the Father in this life.
Sure.
We have the ability to embody that consciousness, that Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
We have the ability to embody that. Yeah, that's what we're doing here right now, is we are bringing that type of energy in here for ourselves to raise our own personal consciousness.
So do you believe in reincarnation?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The different levels of whatever it is, learning?
Absolutely. I know when I started carpentry, here's an excellent example of reincarnation. When I became a carpenter, I knew this stuff already. I knew how to do this crap. I mean, they gave me a set of blueprints. My first job I ever got as a carpenter, that guy hired me as a foreman. I mean, I was 26 years old, right out of the Air Force. I'd never built a house. The guy asked me if I knew how to read blueprints, and I was like, I'd never read blueprints before. I said, yeah, why not? I mean, I can figure it out. Handed me a set of blueprints for a house of 7 gables, all cut and stacked roof. There's no trusses in this place. I don't know if you understand this, a little carpentry stuff, but complete, all cut and stacked roof. I took the blueprints and I built this house, and the guy was so freaking impressed with the way I did it, and my skill, the skill level I exhibited. First time being a foreman, first time building a house by myself. And so I knew this stuff.
Do you think we have reincarnations while we're right here alive, and the different experiences are different levels of incarnation in this life as well?
I think what happens, personally, I think what happens is we fold different lifetimes, different experiences from other lifetimes into our own consciousness. Some people call it walk-ins. There's a lot of different names for it. But I think what happens is we bring in past experiences from other lifetimes that get enfolded into our consciousness, that give us those gifts, quote unquote, that we develop through this lifetime. I think that's what, personally, I feel that's a huge aspect of growth. We talk about stuff. We already know this stuff, right? Everybody, a lot of people are talking about, okay, we're just remembering how to do this stuff. And as that memory is coming up, what we're doing is we're folding in the experience that we've already had into this consciousness, into this life. So, there's still a lot of big questions out there that really don't have good, solid proof without that people can share with others. It's experiential.
Well, when I was a little child, I was sitting in the classroom, I think I was like probably 2nd, 3rd grade, and they had a movie on, and on accident, it was about the storks, the nest on top of buildings in, I can't remember what country. I understood the language. She finally took it off, the movie off, but I understood the language. It was really strange. I remember it to this day. And I'm wondering, does that life kind of stuck with me or something, or is it because I was a child and so young that...
Well, they say that the children are much closer to the memories from the past life. So, there's... depends on how you feel about it. What do you feel? What do you feel what's happening there?
Well, to me, when you're born, you have a year and a day to decide whether you're going to stay in this world and in this life. You have that to change your mind. Sid, I think that we're so close to that year and a day at that age. Maybe the languages and stuff are still there in our minds, and you can call them up. If that makes any sense.
There's a ton of stories about the kids that are pre-7 years old. 7 years old seems to be a big point, a big year for blocking the past life, blocking the memories of things that is out of this lifetime. But up to 7 years old, it seems to be that the children are able to tap into those past lives a lot easier than us who want to do it.
I've been told about a lot of conversations I had with my mom and dad when I was between the ages of 8 months and 3. Started talking at a ridiculously early age about, well, before I was your kid, you know, and I'd go on all these stories about, you know, this past life and whatnot. And, you know, I distinctly remembered drowning and looking up at the dock and seeing people's heads up there and, oh, see you later. You know, so if I'm to believe what I said as a child, that or at least I think I said as a child, I got it secondhand after all, then I totally drowned before I was their kid, and here I am today. You know, and a lot of children have similar stories and things like that. Who knows, you know, how much of it is just wishful thinking on the parents' part, or how much is really going on.
Right.
But it's definitely something worth analyzing ad nauseum. Like, because it's really interesting. You can go over for hours. I mean, I think everybody, at least half of the people here today, have, you know, a story or a thought about something in a past life, or something they've come across that they, you know, just knew. Much like you're watching videos, child.
Strange.
There's
Strange
some,
feeling.
there's some absolutely amazing stories from India, because India is huge for reincarnation, and they seek it out when kids are young. You know, they're very conscious of it. The one story that I heard of just recently, that there was a kid that was born, had this birthmark right on his, big birthmark right on his forehead, and he started talking about getting shot in the head. I mean, he's like 3 years old, and he was telling his parents, "I was shot in the head." And he named off the name of a bar and the name of a town to his parents. And the parents just did a little bit of investigation and found out, yes, there's a town. It was like 700 or 800 miles away from where they lived. And they got a hold of that place, and sure enough, there was a bar there by that name. And they went to this town and went to the bar and asked about people getting shot in the bar. And sure enough, a year before the kid was born, there was a guy that was shot in the forehead in that bar. So, and stories like that give me the willies, you know, like, whoa, okay. That's kind of creepy. What do you got to say, Victoria?
Well, I was thinking,
Oh, there we go.
I was thinking
Crystal gold.
that the phone was going to ring. No, I was thinking when we were talking about the children, I have grandchildren that are under the age of 7, and I love talking to them about spiritual things. And they have imaginary friends. And it's just so interesting to talk to them about, and knowing that, not squelching that. And I think when I had my imaginary friend when I was little, it was probably squelched. And I don't have a lot of memory about who or what that entity was. But with my granddaughter, her friend is blue, and she can describe that blue. And it's very real. And then my grandson, who's 4, you'll just be driving with him in the back seat in his car seat, and he'll just start talking about the ETs and how they're his friends and how they're here to protect us, and, you know, and he just starts talking about it. And yeah, it's right, you know, right on. Instead of trying to go, oh, honey, no.
Right, beat it out of them before they start getting crazy. You're talking crazy, kid. Shut up.
It's kind of a shame we close their minds, isn't it?
It is, it really is. I mean, our whole school system, the whole media system, everything's all designed around shutting us down. And, you know, shoving us into this little box to become good little workers.
I like it that way personally.
Yeah.
I really do, because it gives everyone is given a different set of circumstances and a different set of boundaries and barriers to break through. If we were just given everything on a silver platter without ever having to break a boundary or have an original thought or seemingly original thought, then the point be.
There's definitely, it's definitely a double-edged sword. You know, people, especially when they start waking up and they start going through all the headaches and the heartaches of that process, and they look at, you know, everything around them, the finger starts pointing, oh, that, and oh, that. It was that and that actually got you to ask the question. So, I mean, when I look at what's going on in the world today, I mean, all the turmoil, the wars, and the shootings in the movie theaters, and all this ugly crap that's going on out there, I see both edges of the sword. I see that, sure, there's some painful things going on. There's some crap that people are having to go through. But how many people did that just wake up? How many people just asked the serious question out of that incident that is going to take them to consciousness? So, you know, I see that double-edged sword. That's called loving detachment. You love them, but you got to keep your heart detached from it. You can't put that energy in there because it's going to hurt you. Seems callous to some people, but...
So explain that then in terms of how you are the center of the universe and what you're seeing externally is a reflection of what's going on internally. So if you're lovingly detached from it, but yet it's still a reality and it's still going on, what does that say about your internal landscape and what's happening there?
That is, my universe is right here, right now, in this room. That isn't happening in my yard. That stuff that's out there, it's not happening in my yard. It's happening with my brothers and sisters that are in this world, that are growing, that are experiencing, that are you know, waking up, quote unquote. That's not in my yard, though. That's not in my universe. That is an event that I can look at. I can completely block myself off from that. I can turn the TV off. I can turn my internet off. That is not in my world. Those events are not in my world. I may witness it, but I am not a participant to that. Amelia Van's actually
going on at one time.
exactly. You have
But
to
what about the collision?
choose to associate.
The times when all of a sudden you're going along your business, everything's going fine, and you walk into a quick store and someone steals something right in front of your face, and you can.
That's in my world.
Then it's in your world, and then
The lesson.
it's a lesson to go
Exactly.
within.
Exactly. But I'm sitting in the same situation. I'm sitting at home and read about some guy that went into the store and stole something.
Right.
That's not my world. That's not in my world. Me witnessing it from a distance is not my world. Unless I allow it to really affect me. If I pull it in, if I pull that energy, if there's something I need out of that energy for my growth, I can reach out and I can pull that energy into me to affect me on the emotional body, my spiritual body. I can allow it to affect me because if I need something out of that. But I've already got what I need out of that stuff. Okay, so it's out there. But like I said, if it comes into my world, it's something that's a reflection in some form or fashion.
So I guess then, this is the personal note for me. I'm trying to live my life as sustainably as I possibly can, like true sustainability. And I want to eat food that's good for me, have access to good drinking water, yet I live in Seattle and it's like a food desert. Those things aren't there. So in that aspect, what's happening with my world, because the outside world that I was observing from a distance is now directly affecting the way I live my life and what I put in my body and in my universe. So what is that? It's just the way that we cycle.
That's where you are right now. There's something you need there. Yeah, I personally feel everywhere you get led in this world, in this life, there's something for you to gain out of it. If there's unpleasantness in any position, any place that you're at, there's something you've got to gain through that unpleasantness, through that discomfort. There's something for you to learn, something for you to gain. And as soon as you've learned it, as soon as you've gained it, that is cleared out of your path. Now you might, even in the middle of Seattle, in the middle of all that organic desert, you know, okay? Even in the middle of that, as soon as whatever it is you need to gain out of that is gained, it goes away. Either you'll be led to someplace else, or all of a sudden you'll get access to, you know, speaking of or going to the organic food thing, all of a sudden you'll get access to all the organic food you could ever want from a source you never saw coming. If as soon as that's out of that, whatever that was is taken care of within here, as soon as you've learned it.
It's your perception, basically, because if you see it as an organic desert, then it is an organic desert to you, because I live in Seattle too, and I see it as an organic oasis, and it is an organic oasis in my world. So if you just flip your perspective, you will see the other side of it. It will manifest in your world if you believe that. I mean, the universe is completely abundant in every single thing. So whatever you are seeking, you will find it. So instead of seeking the desert, seek the oasis.
To the magnitude of your faith.
And it could be that the cosmos is guiding me towards a delicious bacon double cheeseburger.
Avocado.
But I'm going to interject something here about what you said. I'm going to interject the aspect of free will, which I truly believe we have. So like when you're talking about being in Seattle and being in a food desert, if Seattle doesn't suit you, you have the free will to leave and change your life. Or there's also that free will when something's done and over with. A lot of times we stick with it because we're afraid to move on. So sometimes things change.
You're there until the fear's gone.
Right.
You just said afraid to move on.
Right.
Because you need something. You have to learn something about overcoming that fear.
Right, but there's still that free will that's saying, I'm not willing to get over my fear. I'm not willing to leave. There's many aspects of why people do what they do.
Right.
I'm more comfortable here, and so I think sometimes we hold on to things too long.
Oh hell yeah! I stayed married to my second wife for 13 years, longer than I should have out of 13 years.
So I do want to interject that there is free will, and there's reasons why sometimes we hold on to things, or sometimes why we let go of things too soon. And I'm also would interject relationships that we think we're soulmates, we're meant to be together forever, when in reality our free will is taking us in different directions. And maybe we are soulmates, maybe we are somehow have past life interactions or whatever, but because of our life choices, we move away and we get divorced, and then our lives never seem to be complete.
Absolutely.
Do we just move on from lesson to lesson to lesson? She won't move from Seattle until she's learned the lesson. So to her, she has to find something other than the desert or the wasteland of food or whatever. And once she's learned her lesson, then can she move on? Will it be time to leave Seattle?
But moving on doesn't necessarily having to move. You should be able to learn every lesson without ever moving. The Buddha sat in one spot for 49 days and learned every lesson he needed to learn without ever moving.
Well, I would say that there's people in our lives that we need to interact with, and sometimes you have to change your physical space to meet those people.
Depending on your path.
It depends on your path, exactly.
There's some co-creational stuff.
Yeah, we're all.
Not a little dot isolated, you're interacting with them. All those interactions are like mirrors, because again, it's mirroring you back, and so it's the relationships become a mirror. And to me, it's always feel like it's a fun house. And Mary makes you look fat or skinny or distorted, you gotta go, is that really me or is that not me? So yeah, then you kind of go, well, maybe that's not me. And it's clear to you that it's not you because it's getting into who you are and you're seeing it. So there's some mirroring back that way too.
Oh yeah. Where we live, there's constant lawnmowers going on. I mean, people have it as a hobby. Yeah. One of the neighbors is like 3 or 4 times a week out there with the lawnmower, and then he gets out his, riding lawnmower, and he gets the little weed cutters, and I'm just like, I was enjoying sitting out, connecting with Mother Earth, but all right. So recently, I discovered I before when noise would, because I'm kind of sensitive to noise to begin with, and the vibration goes through my body and it really affects my mood and stuff like that. But a lot of it was suggestions of fear, like it just shouldn't be like that in this world, You should have things that don't make so much noise, And then all of a sudden one day I was like, why don't I put on music, with the headsets? And then I started playing the flute to this music, and I was like enjoying it, and I think they were enjoying it too. Oh, and then there was the roofer with the Christian music, and anyway, so, I was playing flute to the music in my head, in my earphones, and when I took everything off and I listened, it was completely silent. I was like, huh, that's interesting, because I just went with it, And I think, I kept hearing this statement, what you resist persists, and I think that part of it is learning learning that we can't control other people, and right now, a lot of people don't have compassion for one another or aren't considerate of neighbors and things like that, and sometimes that can cause a lot of dis-ease, And I think that, if we learn to be more peaceful inside of ourselves and not try to control the external stuff and realize that we really can be in charge inside, no matter what's going on. And also, half the stuff that we think is going to harm us or bother us, it really is an illusion. It's more along the lines of it's an ideal. It'd be ideal if it was like this, but I can't control that circumstance or that person or the way the food is or and all that, and you just go with it, The body is an amazing thing, and it takes care of itself, really, It really does. If we're at peace up here, we can kind of shut the monkey mind down, and, and just realize it's okay. Wherever I'm at, I'm supposed to be here, and it's okay that these things are happening. It really, it takes a lot of work, and at the same time, practicing that in every moment, because there are some really disturbing things on this planet right now, and quite frankly, if I start getting in there, I realize that I'm taking on the burden, for the planet, and that's not really what an individual can do, like the president can't do it all, kind of feel, it takes all of us in a peaceful place, coming from a peaceful place inside of ourselves, not to control, but to run the energy in a more, in a brighter way, within ourselves, and then that, expands from there.
Mirrored out.
Yeah, the peacefulness kind of expands out, like when I took off the headsets and stopped playing flute. It's almost like they were listening, I have no idea how the flute sounded. I was like, I have no idea how it sounded, and I was kind of laughing about that. Oh, and then I was singing out loud, like in the yard, like I don't know how loud I was singing, and I don't do these things like in public. I'm usually very to myself and kind of constricted with expression, and that was a fun day because I just didn't. I was just like, it's okay, I don't know who can hear me, and I don't know what I sound like, and it doesn't matter. It was kind of like a little experiment.
And at the end, I felt very peaceful inside, you know, because I wasn't trying to control. I wasn't like shouting out, you know, screw you know, this is, haven't you mowed your lawn enough? Jeez, you know, because I'll walk through my house like that. I'll just be like, jeez, you know, this guy, it's like it's his hobby. I don't get it. You know, find something else to do. I mean, you've got like grass this. Who knows? It's like a matchbox size yard. You know.
But see
And
that,
he's
but
like,
see,
he's got a buzz cut going. You
but
know.
see that on his end, there's a reason why he's doing this. Whether he maybe have some,
To him, he's connecting
maybe he has
with
some
others.
OCD issues, maybe this is some way of him coping with what's going on in the house. I mean,
Yeah,
there's so
it's
many things
his
that are
release.
happening that we don't
it's
know
his
about.
release, and here I am saying you shouldn't be that way,
Yeah.
and that to him, that's what makes him feel good. So who am I to say that, you know, you can't do something that makes you feel good,
And
right?
that's a good example of us trying to control our environment around us at the cost of others, when we can just put on headphones and play the flute and be our own little selves and have a good time.
Yeah.
And, you know, let them be themselves, as
Yeah.
long as we're not interacting in a way
And
that's,
everybody's in
you know,
heaven at the same
confrontational.
time.
And then the guy in the house next door is going, oh my God, I wish that woman would quit playing her
Well,
damn flute.
he's in between the two of them with the lawnmower and you, and he's like, oh, no, you know.
I hope not. I mean, I really hope not. I wouldn't want to be disturbing, but, you know.
When you were gone a couple days last week, I didn't hear the lawnmower once.
Right, exactly. What you just persists. That's that, you know.
And that's also a good point when we say like we have to fight cancer, we have to,
Oh, God.
you know,
Yeah.
we just make it stronger by, you know, with that resistance that,
Yeah,
you know, we have to
resistance.
reframe that message.
Yeah.
Where Mother Teresa said she would never, don't invite me to a war rally, but I'll go to a peace rally,
Yeah.
something like that.
Right. And how are you gonna fight cancer? How are you gonna fight drugs? How are you gonna, you know, fight the government? How are
It's
you
better
gonna
to be
fight
cancer free than to fight cancer. You know, it's better to, you know, the body heal cancer and be cancer free than fight it. That just creates
It's
confrontation.
that little change in the way
Yeah.
you say it inside your own mind. You know, just that little change makes a huge difference on something. Well,
It's very challenging when you're suffering physical pain, you know, and you have that constant reminder that, oh, my knee is like damaged and has, you know, it's like a constant reminder that, oh, I have a problem here. And so it's like you're constantly reinforcing that. So how do you break out of physical?
as soon as you figure that out, you let me know. I have a bad back. I had back surgery in 2004, and I live with it every day.
Actually,
So-
this conference that I went to in June, we talked about pain. And somebody had the theory that pain is our body trying to communicate with us. And that if we could open ourselves to it and say, okay, pain, what is it that you want to tell me? And let it speak. That might be a way to deal with it. Just an idea.
I let it talk to me every day. I can't avoid it.
Yeah, I feel like what's happening in our world right now is everything's accelerating, and physically, like, you know, and it's reflected in the state of the healthcare system and everybody's bodies. Physically, the harder that we try to hold on to our identities with our minds and keep our worlds together, usually a lot more constriction starts to appear in the body and the physical tissues. And I don't know, to me it seems like we're coming to a place where we have to really allow ourselves to get very spacious and to really carve out that time to get extraordinarily quiet, because the noise that our body is making is sort of like this, it's matching the background noise of all the confusion in our world right now. And so, like, by listening to the pain, you know, allowing it to sort of speak in a way by creating that stillness, and for me, that's my story, because I've been such like a busybody, and I don't think you guys have seen me sit down for very long today either, but to slow myself down enough to hear and interpret those messages. Because we lose our touch with them usually when we're young, and the world says work harder, work harder, work harder, more exertion, and we don't really have like it trained into us of how to, you know, release the pressure. And, you know, which is, you know, creating that quiet spaciousness. And so that's, I guess, my contribution to the physical portion of it is that we just have to get quiet enough to hear what our body's telling us.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So like, because I was a personal trainer for 8 years, and all day, every day, it was my job to beat people up, you know, to basically tell them, you know, you're a weakling, and your buttocks is like marshmallows, I'm going to pump you up, you know, and it was all about, you know, working harder to be better. And that is hardwired in our third dimensional brains right now. Work harder, be better. And it's actually the opposite. Everybody's worked so hard for so long that we got way too much stuff everywhere. And we have, like, in a way, if we don't release that mentality, well, we all know where that's going. But I think that it's that feminine energy that's coming in right now to allow and to receive and to be spacious and to accept. And that's, you know, a physical experience too for people. Because that feminine energy is usually the one, because feminine is sort of like that open and flowing, and so when that constriction shows up in the body, it's usually masculine related somehow, you know, or not masculine related, because that, it's not a good or bad thing, you know, masculine or feminine energy, but about balancing the two. And, you know, we also have all sorts of ideas about gender, so we have to get all of that stuff out of our system too, because androgyny is being embodied by a lot more people nowadays too, and we see that very evident in our world. And so our physical experience is transforming with our mental experience, and so the body portion of it is, it's your perfect match. Honestly, it is your perfect voice connected to your highest intelligence, because it is what constructs and operates this. And so creating that space to hear it, I agree with that. And it's also very challenging too to let go of that need to do and to achieve. Oh man, this is hard. But, yeah. So it's all about having fun. Somebody did a Reiki session on me one time and said I was a man in a past lifetime and I'm learning how to be, I'm learning a different way to be, and that I need to have more fun. And so I think fun, the fun factor in being, you know, passionately pursuing what gives you life as opposed to allowing your perspective to be filled with, you know, those things that keep your energetic body on that roller coaster.
Yeah, that's actually better.
And stretch. Oh my gosh, stretching, holy cow, is like, because that's sort of the antithesis to all that constriction, right? And so that's why, you know, yoga is such a tenured practice, is because it really helps to sort of balance out all of the mental activity that's happening in this world. So, but I mean, I don't do a whole lot of yoga. I just stretch when I feel I need to. And sometimes, you know, when I'm, you know, especially as things are accelerating, like I can't hear it. You know, I can't hear it, can't hear it, can't hear it. And then last night I'm like standing on one foot, and, you know, I just leaned back ever so slightly and I almost felt my back slip. And it's just like, oh, because it was when I sprained it years ago. But like, that was my factor right there. My signal to say stop absolutely everything you're doing right now, because nothing matters more than your body, because it is the portal through which the rest of your life is expressed. And we tend to disassociate ourselves from the physical experience, like I'm not my body, but you are and you aren't. Because the information travels both ways. The perspective can come from above and below. It's just a matter of where are you at. Have you been in your body the whole time and now you need to get out of your body, which I think a lot of people are having to do now too. You know, they're needing to get out of this physical experience and into the etheric experience, you know, and some people are all in the etheric experience and completely disconnected from their bodies. And so we're all kind of coming together from all these worlds, you know, and none are superior or inferior or more evolved or less evolved. But ultimately, as we learn to accept everything and open to everything, we learn from the opposite ends of the spectrum, and we are slowly, as a society, balancing each other out. As you allow it. And I'm sure there will be, I don't know, it'll always be a balanced experience.
We have an interesting interesting future myself, especially with the way things have manifested this year. It's been absolutely amazing. The way so many people are waking up, so many people are asking questions, and the more people that ask it, the higher that energy rate. And it's palpable to me. I can feel it even in the middle of the big city. I can still feel that consciousness rising. I don't know. We're going good places. Places aren't nowhere. You look good.
I don't want to start off on too much of a tangent, but we're kind of, I guess this is sort of open forum for all sorts of topics, but I just heard recently about some project called Keshi. Has anybody else heard of it? Keshe? And I haven't done a lot of investigation about it, but apparently there's some scientist from Iran I'm sure he's got help, but it seems like they're going through the processes right now of issuing the patents for this technology to all of the global governments all at once, and it's going to be released in September, and this technology is transportation technology based on quantum science, and theoretically we'll be able to transport us from like New York to, Baghdad in like 10 minutes. And of course it will basically dissolve all barriers, because think about it, if all of a sudden third world countries can end up in the middle of, downtown Seattle at the best organic food store. Just kidding.
There you go. There's your answer.
But all of a sudden, if you could go everywhere and transport yourself everywhere, that could be a pretty crazy experience too. So, but the source that I heard that from mentioned something. He's like, no, I don't know if this is legit or not, but this could be what 2012 is all about. And that could be just one little tiny dimension of how much we're going to expand personally too by then, if that happens. It's all possibilities and limitlessly so. But are they?
September of 2012, two people try to fly in space at the same time. End of world. I buy it. I buy it.
But it also could mean the opposite too. I'm sure that humanity and civilization, which goes way back further than they teach us in school. I'm sure that we've gone back and forth, learning lessons and getting our hands burned, and really building some really beautiful realities, collective experiences with each other. And I think it's just gone like this since the dawn of time. This is existence. The string theory, the vibration, and so we're all coming around again to this spot together. And gosh, how cool is it that we get to have this conversation?